Tensions between Mexico and the United States seemed on the verge of erupting into a full-scale trade war. But at the last moment, everything changed. Under the leadership of Claudia Sheinbaum, Mexico not only avoided a crisis but took the upper hand. Join Baby Eagle as we uncover this dramatic showdown. A brewing storm on the border. For months, tensions simmered between Mexico and the United States, with both nations seemingly on a path toward economic confrontation. At the heart of the conflict was President Donald Trump's threat to impose significant tariffs on Mexican goods entering the United States. His administration argued that these drastic measures were necessary to compel Mexico to act more decisively on issues like immigration and border control. The announcement sparked widespread concern not only among political analysts, but also among business leaders, workers, and ordinary citizens on both sides of the border. The stakes were high. A tariff war with Mexico, America's largest trading partner in many sectors, risked severe economic consequences. For Mexico, whose economy depends heavily on exporting goods to the U.S., the threat loomed especially large. Entire industries, from agriculture and manufacturing to automotive parts and electronics, faced uncertainty. Meanwhile, in the U.S., many companies voiced concerns that new tariffs could raise prices for consumers and disrupt well-established supply chains. As the deadline for the tariffs approached, anxiety escalated. Media outlets speculated on whether Mexico would make last-minute concessions or whether the U.S. would follow through with its threats. Then, in a move that surprised many observers, the Trump administration suddenly called off the planned tariffs just before they were scheduled to go into effect. The decision came without a clear explanation, leaving many to wonder what had truly changed behind the scenes. In Mexico, the reaction was swift and overwhelmingly positive. Relief swept across the country, from the halls of government to factory floors and marketplaces. For many, this last-minute reprieve wasn't just about dodging economic disaster. It was seen as a moment of national assertion and strength. The decision to back off was interpreted as evidence that Mexico's leadership had held firm under pressure and successfully defended the country's dignity and interests. One figure stood out in this narrative: Claudia Sheinbaum. As a prominent political leader and a rising star in the national arena, Sheinbaum was credited with helping guide Mexico through the crisis with a calm and steady hand. Her role in maintaining composure, advocating for diplomacy, and avoiding public confrontation while remaining firm on Mexico's position won her admiration both at home and abroad. At a time when many feared escalation, Sheinbaum helped turn a potential economic clash into a moment of national unity and diplomatic strength. While President Trump appeared visibly dissatisfied with the outcome, particularly as it highlighted his administration's limited leverage in certain areas like energy, Mexico's leadership emerged with enhanced credibility. This event marked a key turning point in the bilateral relationship and signaled the beginning of a new phase, where Mexico showed it was not only capable of resisting pressure, but also of playing a more assertive role in regional diplomacy. A calm leader in turbulent times. In the midst of a growing diplomatic storm, when uncertainty and tension gripped both nations, Claudia Sheinbaum emerged as a voice of composure and rationality. Unlike President Trump, who continued to amplify the pressure with increasingly forceful rhetoric and public warnings, Sheinbaum chose not to mirror that aggression. Instead, she remained measured and deliberate, refusing to escalate the situation unnecessarily. Her leadership style stood in stark contrast, one rooted in calm conviction rather than public confrontation. Rather than responding to threats with similar hostility, Sheinbaum took a principled stance. She made it clear that while Mexico would always pursue peace and dialogue first, it would not tolerate being treated unfairly. Her message was firm. If the United States chose to implement the tariffs, Mexico would be fully prepared to respond with its own economic countermeasures. This wasn't posturing. It was a quiet but powerful assertion of national dignity and readiness. Her approach struck a chord at a time when nerves were frayed and many feared the worst. With over 80% of Mexico's exports directed to the U.S., any disruption in the flow of goods could have devastating effects. Countless industries, automotive, agriculture, textiles, electronics, and more, relied on the seamless movement of goods across the border every single day. A sudden imposition of tariffs risked collapsing supply chains, raising production costs, and wiping out thousands of jobs almost overnight. More than just an economic risk, the looming crisis threatened the livelihoods of ordinary people. Factory workers, farmers, truck drivers, and small business owners faced the real prospect of economic hardship. With this human cost in mind, Sheinbaum's calm but resolute tone helped reassure the Mexican public. She demonstrated that leadership did not require shouting or political theater. Instead, it required discipline, foresight, and the courage to hold the line without blinking. In those uncertain weeks, Sheinbaum's image was solidified, not just as a competent public official, but as a symbol of strength and stability. Her ability to stay composed under pressure not only strengthened Mexico's negotiating position, but also showed that diplomacy, when rooted in principle and clarity, could stand its ground even against a more powerful neighbor. Migration and tariffs, a volatile mix. Trump's rhetoric didn't stop at commerce. He linked his tariff threats to immigration, arguing that Mexico wasn't doing enough to curb migrant flows into the U.S. This move shifted a trade issue into politically charged territory. Despite the pressure, Sheinbaum held the line, choosing diplomacy over confrontation. Her actions spoke louder than words. Mexico would not be bullied into silence or submission. Behind closed doors, diplomatic negotiations gained traction. Mexico firmly argued that disrupting trade would harm not only its own citizens, but also American companies reliant on Mexican supply chains. This logical, quiet resistance eventually led to Trump backing off, just days before the tariffs were due. Victory in the Zócalo. After the announcement, Sheinbaum addressed a jubilant crowd in Mexico City's Zócalo Square. Thousands gathered, waving flags and expressing unity. She praised the public's patience and pride, reaffirming that Mexico had stood tall with dignity. Her speech focused on mutual respect, sovereignty, and the complex but historic relationship between the two nations. Rather than claiming glory, she emphasized wisdom and resilience. Her message resonated far beyond political circles. It touched a national spirit defined by strength and unity in the face of adversity. A diplomatic pause. For now. Just 2 days after a contentious meeting between leaders, Trump phoned Sheinbaum to confirm that tariffs on goods under the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement would be postponed until at least April 2nd. He called it a sign of respect. Sheinbaum responded with characteristic grace. She didn't gloat. Instead, she invited citizens to a Sunday gathering, not to protest but to celebrate unity in the form of a peaceful festival. Her method has proven effective. Engage the U.S. respectfully, but never from a position of weakness. She stressed that if new pressure emerged, Mexico would once again respond with unity and resolve. She also hinted that if necessary, Mexico could turn to Canada or other global partners. The nation, she affirmed, has options and is not at anyone's mercy. Interdependence runs deep. When asked about her calm, deliberate strategy, Sheinbaum emphasized the importance of staying composed in tense moments. The stakes were high. Over 3/4 of Mexican exports are destined for the U.S. Any interruption could wreak havoc on the national economy. To grasp the depth of economic ties, one only needs to look at the numbers. In the previous year, the U.S. imported nearly $500 billion worth of goods from Mexico, while Mexico imported around $334 billion from its northern neighbor. The $170+ billion trade gap underscores just how deeply the U.S. depends on Mexico. This isn't unique to Mexico. Canada is also heavily reliant on U.S. markets, but Mexico's role is especially prominent in the automotive sector. Roughly 27% of Mexico's exports to the U.S. are vehicles and auto parts, compared to Canada's 13%. Any trade war threatens Mexico's vital industries. Rising political star. Having only taken office in October, Sheinbaum is already making headlines. Her approval ratings have soared, reaching as high as 85%. With a scientific background, hands-on experience as mayor of Mexico City, and a commitment to social justice, she has earned wide respect. Many now believe she's on the path to becoming Mexico's next president. When Trump initially floated the idea of punitive tariffs, Sheinbaum quickly dismissed them as an affront to Mexico's dignity. She vowed a firm, proportional response. When the White House hinted at a 25% tariff on auto parts, she acted fast, meeting with manufacturers, rallying community leaders, and ensuring that the public understood Mexico would respond not with empty threats, but with strategic resolve. A calculated retaliation plan. Mexico's foreign ministry wasted no time. Within days, officials in Mexico City sent Washington a list of potential retaliatory tariffs, covering U.S. products from avocados to steel, spirits to tomatoes. The message was simple. Economic pressure would be met with consequences. In contrast, the U.S. seemed indecisive. On March 10, 2025, headlines read, "Trump delays tariffs, confusion in the White House." It was unclear whether the delay was permanent or temporary. But in Mexico, the response was unified and confident. Leaders stayed focused, demonstrating calm strength rather than dramatic gestures. A diplomatic triumph. "We held our ground, we didn't retreat, and we achieved results," Sheinbaum told the public. The press lauded her for helping Mexico avoid a full-blown trade crisis. While some in the U.S. publicly maintained a tough stance, internal concerns mounted. Auto manufacturers warned that new tariffs on Mexican parts could halt operations. Behind the scenes, few wanted a trade war. Many American companies rely on Mexican factories. Meanwhile, Mexico was fully prepared with its own countermeasures, mainly agricultural products from states that supported Trump. It was a risky political move during an election year. Playing the long game. While some were playing short-term political games, Sheinbaum was thinking strategically. She didn't yet hold the presidency, but her influence was undeniable. Backed by President López Obrador, she took a clear stand. Mexico sought peace but wouldn't accept injustice. Her calm leadership was noted even in the U.S., where some media described her as serene in the best way. Her private discussions with U.S. lawmakers, CEOs, and agricultural groups paid off. She explained how hurting Mexico's economy would drive up U.S. grocery costs and disrupt American factories. Her behind-the-scenes strategy worked. The Trump administration backed down, for now. A shift in national mood. As the news broke, Mexico erupted in support. People celebrated in the streets, chanting her name. What began as fear turned into national pride. Media outlets ran headlines like, "Sheinbaum puts Trump on the defensive." Factories kept running, supply chains remained intact, and, for the moment, workers felt secure. Still, the risk of renewed tariffs lingered, but Sheinbaum's message was firm. They tried once, we didn't fold, and we won't next time. Her popularity surged, and talk of a 2026 presidential run gained momentum. Uncertainty, across the border. Meanwhile, in Washington, confusion reigned. Officials offered conflicting statements, investors hesitated, and farmers, once loyal to Trump, began to doubt. Amid the chaos, one truth became unavoidable: trade wars hurt everyone. This was precisely the argument Sheinbaum and her allies made to American decision-makers. Even U.S. legislators began reconsidering their stance, noting that tariffs were a flawed solution. As Trump backpedaled, maybe temporarily, maybe permanently, the political debate intensified. A diplomatic win, but no time to relax. In Mexico, there was a sense of accomplishment. The country stood its ground, made its case, and emerged stronger. At the center of it all was a calm, articulate leader who proved diplomacy could still work in a chaotic world. Some Americans, especially hardliners on immigration, were frustrated. They had hoped for harsher action on the border, but instead saw Mexico take the win. Still, the underlying threat remains. With U.S. elections approaching, tariffs could make a comeback. Trump may again accuse Mexico of failing to stop migration and reignite economic tensions. Sheinbaum has made it clear: Mexico is ready to respond point by point. Sheinbaum versus Trump: two visions of leadership. What sets Sheinbaum apart is her commitment to a humane and dignified approach to immigration. This starkly contrasts Trump's policies centered on walls and border shutdowns. Sheinbaum wants cooperation without turning Mexico into a border patrol state. The possibility of future clashes remains high, but Sheinbaum has already stated, "We have our response plan ready." It's not just talk. Mexico has a list of retaliatory tariffs it can roll out if necessary. President López Obrador added his voice, stressing that while the U.S. is a key partner, Mexico won't compromise its pride. The road ahead. Though trade between the two nations remains strong for now, political winds can change rapidly. The balance is fragile, and one wrong move could disrupt it all. Still, Sheinbaum's influence in Mexico continues to rise. She's seen as bold, intelligent, and unafraid to confront external pressure. Critics may call her theatrical, but to most, she embodies strength. Sheinbaum speaks not just of trade, but of rebuilding the economy from the inside out, helping everyday citizens, and enacting meaningful reforms. That vision has earned her growing support. A fragile peace and an uncertain future. Beyond tariffs, Trump's insistence on building a border wall continues to stir tension. He's pushed Mexico to block migrants, but the Mexican government refuses to fully cooperate. They won't build a wall or deploy full-time immigration officers. There are temporary camps, but no permanent solution. The disconnect between both sides' views fuels the conflict. Sheinbaum insists that punishing others won't solve shared problems. This sharply contrasts Trump's belief that pressure, whether economic or physical, is the only way forward. With U.S. elections looming, will Trump revive the tariff debate to fire up his base? If he does, Sheinbaum is ready to meet him head-on. A defining moment in leadership. A renewed trade conflict remains a possibility. But not everyone in the U.S. wants escalation. Business leaders and everyday Americans alike fear the consequences, a war that would damage both nations' economies. Mexico understands this, so does Sheinbaum. Her message is clear: tariffs may not scare us, but they hurt everyone. For now, her diplomatic approach is holding strong, but the path ahead is unpredictable. Whether Sheinbaum maintains her calm or adopts a firmer tone remains to be seen. Likewise, only time will tell whether Trump views tariffs as a winning strategy or a risky gamble. One thing is certain: Sheinbaum is now at center stage. If you found today's story interesting and want to keep exploring in-depth global insights with us, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell. There's plenty of exciting content waiting for you in the upcoming videos.